Hi there, welcome to Wyckoff Technical Analysis session for TAO. And if you're new to my sessions, here is the key takeaways you can expect. There are 3 of them in total. So let's start with the weekly chart of TAO. And since this is the very first session, I've only put in the key levels references over here, the rainbow color key levels. And we can go through together on plugging in these Wyckoff stages. One more caveat that I want to bring to you is that since TAO is very young, so what we're putting in now, we may have to adjust later because a lot of new projects or new coins exhibit a behavior that's beyond anybody's guess in the very beginning. So let's see, while we have about a year and a half of data, hopefully what we're going to plug in will stay and remains where they are when we get further along the timeline. So let's start with the distribution cycle, the one back in October 2024. The buying climax should sit over there. There was a second test actually over here, and then an upthrust afterwards. The automatic reactions tested the blue key level of 412. This was the PSY period, and then the sign of weakness appeared at about Christmas time, just a week before last Christmas. LPSY and more LPSYs. Eventually, we get to the preliminary support stage and also the selling climax. A bit of automatic rally. There is a subsequent test. I will simply call that a spring because it went way deeper than the selling climax. And then there it goes to a new distribution cycle that lasted for a pretty long period of time. Rather than removing these, let's copy this across and plug those in as well. Second test, sign of strength, automatic rally, preliminary supports, and last point of support. You can call that a test. That's testing the red key level of around 220. Okay, now is the current distribution. Currently, the climaxes are lower, or the peaks that's being tested are lower than the ones back in October and December 2024. It's even lower than the second test back in November last year. Anyway, let's move them, copy them across. Automatic reaction happened all the way down to the yellow key level of 286 around June time. And there was a second test back in July, around the end of July. Come back for a sign of weakness. And this, we can consider that an upthrust that happened just, 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks, 2 weeks and a half ago. And now it's coming back down for, you can call that a phase D sign of weakness, or just sign of weakness after the upthrust. Alright, so that's where we are now. Last time, after the upthrust, it took quite a long period of time of around 3 to 4 months before it re-enters the accumulation. So we can easily check. So that's 84 days. So almost 3 months time before it reached the selling climax from the upthrust. Okay, so we are still early at that stage, but that doesn't mean it can drop quicker, given the situation now is quite different from last year end. So let's see how gradual or how vigorous this time this is when we get to the similar period near the end of the year. Okay, the last time it dropped, it was also at the beginning of December. Currently, we are like a month ahead. So this we would possibly see LPSYs in the middle, like mini bounces from the SOW, like what happened over here. Okay? And the tendency of it re-entering the accumulation cycle is getting pretty high. And eventually the selling climax after the preliminary support. Okay? So it's 25% of bounce and 75% heading south. Let's get to the daily chart and see whether there is any timing indication. Again, these tags, we haven't put in any yet. So let's start with this dip over here. Let's assume that's the preliminary support, that's the selling climax, and then we have the automatic rally, the spring over here, the sign of strength, back up last point of support, the PSY, buying climax. That is very close to the buying climax. I would just call that a second test. The automatic reaction right there. Sign of weakness, LPSY is multiple. In the daily chart, I'm not going to tag that frequent, because otherwise it will be very difficult for you to read. And at this point, some people would treat these as part of the entire distribution. For me, because it's a daily chart, so I consider that a selling climax already. And then subsequently, the white candle over there, to me that's an automatic rally. And this period of consolidation, the horizontal or sideways trading with a lower high, those are additional tests. I just simplify and put just one test over here. And then to gather sufficient strength that led to another buying climax and then an upthrust. Okay, same thing, automatic reaction happened. I'm not putting in the AR2 here, but in my other charts, I consider this period the AR2. AR correspond to BC, AR2 correspond to the UT. And then we have same thing, LPSY. And eventually this leg downwards. That's the continuation until it reaches the selling climax. And then same thing repeated. Sign of strength. There was a spring right over there around October 10th. Okay? And quickly, another distribution in the daily chart. So see, it's a lot more busier than the weekly chart. Okay, sorry I'm not talking as much because I'm focusing on plugging in these things, the stages. Alright. It's PSY. I call that a PSY2 as well. Okay, so it's just too busy in the chart if I plug in too many things, but for this one, I'll put that in. So basically, buying climax. And then the sign of weakness happened over here. PSY. You see these little peaks, okay? And now we're heading towards another accumulation. So let's say, where is the PS? Okay, right there. Let's put that back. So we are potentially already within this for the daily time frame. Okay, in the weekly, we are still within, at a higher level. Not that we are too far from the weekly PS, preliminary support. Okay, again, is the selling climax going to end somewhere around the yellow key level of 286, or is it going to go even deeper like the spring back in October 10th, October 11th, that particular week? It tested a very low level. That's something that's very important that we have to take note for. This level is at around 139 or 140. Okay, if we draw a line here, just to let us have a reference in case it really comes back to retest this level. Not that I hope for that to happen, but there's always a risk of, crazier news coming out in our very crazy world today. Not one time in this chart at least that TAO has tested this level, but October 10th has shown us it's possible. So that's why we have to be careful. And that's also why when I always remind everybody to have a stop loss, these are the reasons. We don't know when crazy things would happen. Alright, so this, after the Wyckoff stages, also we talk about, not this one, but the key levels or these reference levels. One more. The downtrend that started November 2nd, okay, just 2 weeks ago. If this trend holds true, if we are really going through such a trend, the potential breakout timing, we are very close to 1, but the price has already dropped below the green key level of around 328. Okay, if it was still trading above, then we have an opportunity, or TAO has an opportunity to break outside of this downward channel. But it seems like it's starting to break towards the downside, which isn't a surprise because this downtrend, like I said, has already started for 2 weeks. So it's a natural tendency for it to continue within the trend. So the next opportunity comes at around next Friday. So if the price continues to trade along this triangle, that's the second chance after this one that the breakout would happen. And if that really comes down and show us the selling climax over there, that we have two things confirmed. One's the selling climax, the other is that is breaking outside of the downtrend, and it may start to trade sideways. Not saying that it won't come down for a deeper test like the spring over here, but the trend basically has changed if that breakout happens. Okay, so if it doesn't break, obviously there are two more, the orange and red key levels, as well as the long-term playground zone bottom that we'll eventually get to. And those dates will be all the way till the end of this month, assuming the trend doesn't change. But let's see. I'll probably come back to this next week as well, so we can take a look after 7 days of trading, what eventually looks like for TAO. Is it really continue its path in the bigger time frame towards the selling climax? Okay, so thanks for joining me for this